And now I would like to welcome back to WeMAR, Mayor Weise from Avondale. So how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I'm all right. Things are going well in Avondale.
They are. Thanks for having me back. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. So we're going to start out with, just like last time, some really big, broad questions to start out. So 2 years ago, you had a really vibrant vision for what Avondale was going to be like. And I'd like to know what's the progress on that vision for you, and what do you see as Avondale being in 5 to 10 years from now?
Okay. You know, 2 years ago, Avondale was still in the midst of the recession. We had made some progress when it came to development on home building, on commercial and retail, and since then the market has really turned around, not only for Avondale, but as you all know, the West Valley as a whole. Things are going really well. The vision is getting there. My dad was a salesman all of his life, and my dad always said, you can always be happy but never be satisfied. And as a salesman, if you're satisfied, you have a tendency to be stagnant. So I'm happy with the progress we made. I'm not satisfied with where we're at now. But the vision is happening. We've poured a lot of money into infrastructure over the last 2 years, whether it's our streetlight project, whether it's streets, water infrastructure, millions of dollars into our parks. And that has been a good benefit. I'm always a big believer, if you invest in the city when times are good, you won't have to worry about that when times are bad. So the vision is going along, and we have a really strong council. So I'm happy with it right now.
Great. So right now, Avondale City Plan is split into North Avondale and South Avondale by virtue of the I-10 mostly. In North Avondale, Friendship Park has had quite a lot of work done, and it's beautiful. And with that has gone the street construction at McDowell Road,
correct,
which has been something that Avondale citizens have dealt with for a long time, and it's now a street you can drive on, so that's terrific. Can you update us on any upcoming amenities?
Yeah, part of the parks infrastructure is not only with the big parks, Friendship and Festival. I know we're going to touch on Festival a little later on, but it's also the smaller parks. So we put about $9 million into Friendship Park a couple years ago, and that included the splash pad and new amenities with restrooms and playground equipment. And it really has become a destination for people, not only Avondale residents, but residents throughout the Southwest Valley. So part of the new improvements we're putting in there are new LED lights on the soccer fields. For those of you who don't know, who knows about Friendship Park? So 10 soccer fields, one of the largest soccer complexes in the state. We're replacing the restroom building to the west side. It's that kind of pink building that you see. We're making improvements to the dog park that's there, and we're adding 2 more off-the-leash dog parks. It should actually be a sponsor, off the leash. And new playground equipment on the west end of the park. One of the issues we've always had with Friendship Park is the irrigation system. That facility was built probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, and irrigation over time just kind of breaks down. So we've done a really good job of going in there and replacing it. One thing we've also done is we've taken some of the outside contractors that we used and hired 8 new people. So we're taking some of those services in-house to kind of help us address issues with irrigation and anything that has to be done more quickly than we could before. So,
great.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the overall plan for improvements in North Avondale as well as Avondale as a whole?
Infrastructure, you're going to hear me talk about infrastructure for the next half an hour, 45 minutes. So Garden Lakes, which is our largest development, Mandy's going, woohoo! Our largest development in the city now. We'll touch on the new big one coming in. But Garden Lakes, last year and a half ago, was always using city water to irrigate their landscaping. Millions of gallons of water a year. And Garden Lakes came up with a very innovative plan to use the lake water to water their irrigation, to water their landscaping, save the city millions of gallons of water a year. Garden Lakes Parkway, which is a challenge in itself when it comes to speeding and the schools and kids trying to cross. We've done a restriping job on Garden Lakes Parkway. We put in some dedicated bike paths. One side of Garden Lakes Parkway has sidewalks, one side does not. So you have a tendency for people to walk in the street as opposed to walking on the other side of the sidewalk. So we're trying to mitigate that. We've had some issues there. In the northern part of the city, we just did a historic, and I see Councilwoman Pat Dennis back there. Hi, Pat. On Monday, we approved a historic water deal with the City of Phoenix. when I tell you it's historic, it's not a word that I throw around lightly. It's historic. And we have extra capacity to store water in the city of Avondale, and we store water above ground and underground. We had about 5,000 acre-feet of water capacity that we could store. We signed an agreement with City of Phoenix to bring that water to Avondale, and we will store it for them. And then in the northern part of the city, we are going to put a pipeline in from Indian School Road down to our facility by Garden Lakes off 107th Avenue. And it's a multi-million-dollar project, and that will connect with the City of Phoenix water line that is coming in. So I think what you'll see in the northern part of the city is I think you'll see better water pressures, which is a big deal. I think you'll see a higher level of water in the northern part of the city. Will people in Avondale have to deal with construction on that pipeline for 18 months? They will. But I think the end result is going to be much better.
Great. So if you are unfamiliar with the way Avondale water system works, we had Lacey James, who is water department for Avondale here, about a year ago. The video of that is Cap to Tap, and it's on the WeMARGAD.org website. So www.wemargad.org, WeMARGAD.org, under videos, you'll see Cap to Tap. And the last hour of that 3-hour event was the City of Avondale telling us about how they store water, treat water, and get it into your tap. So if you're unfamiliar with that system, then go ahead and watch that video and you'll know what the mayor's talking about.
So one thing why it's significant is that Avondale uses primarily groundwater for its water supply. We never used a lot of surface water. And this facility allows us to use surface water, which anytime you can diversify your water portfolio, it helps the city in the near term, but it also helps it in the long term. And I will tell you that Avondale has one of the strongest water portfolios, not only in the Phoenix metro area, but in the state. Yes. And that's important. I also want to acknowledge Councilman Tina Conde, who just walked in.
Hey, Tina.
Now I'm under more pressure because I have 2 council members here and I can't make things up. So,
darn that double check.
Darn, I hate that.
Great. So in South Avondale, we have Festival Fields, which it looks like you're planning to put in a pump track and skate park. Can you tell us more about that project and what the timeline is?
Yeah. Festival Fields is a huge park for us. It serves the southern part of the city, and it needed improvements. It gets used a lot. One of the downsides of having a popular park is that those fields are never down, so you can never do maintenance on them. You can never replenish the grass. You can never do maintenance on those facilities. And a year and a half ago, we basically got a new city council. And as they were campaigning and going throughout the city, one of the issues that they had concerns with were parks. And sometimes it takes outside eyes to really see, what we need to work on. And they really pushed park improvements, and one of those was Festival Fields. Festival Fields takes the pressure off of Friendship Park. It really does, because now you have 2 options for people to go and utilize those facilities. So we're going to spend, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, $13 to $15 million over the next couple of years for Festival Fields. We're going to add 25 acres to that park. And I have my list here because there's a lot going on. Group picnic pavilion, new playground equipment, a new splash park. So if you like the splash park at Friendship Park, the splash pad at Festival is going to be along the same line. Skate and bicycle park area. A lot of times you'll see a city build a skate area or a bike area and never combine them. We're doing both, and that's important for our residents. An irrigation lake. So as the water comes off the splash pad, it'll go into the lake area. The splash pad is going to use potable water for right now, potable water. And the residents, when we went to the residents, council had an idea of what they wanted Friendship Park to look like when we redid it. And we went out and did a survey of residents. And it was different than what we wanted. Some of the things were the same, but they really said, these are the things we want. And council and staff worked as hard as they could to make sure that their ideas were incorporated into the new facility. Sand volleyball courts, off-the-leash dog park, 2 lighted youth sports, again, taking the pressure off of Friendship Park. So that's huge for us. New restrooms and parking lot and landscaping.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So that's good.
So that pump track, if you're not familiar with what a pump track is, that is all the rage right now with the kids. It looks like a ton of fun. I would never try it, probably break a hip. But go online and look it up. It looks like a lot of fun. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of kids who are thrilled about that.
Yeah, we just did outreach to the community on the design of that, and that was on Tuesday night. We had a lot of people come out and kind of give us their ideas. We had kids drawing what they wanted to see. So it really is community involvement in that project.
That's great. So Mountain View, DeConcini, and Campbell Parks will be getting improvements. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, the truth is that a lot of people from outside areas use our bigger parks, Friendship and Festival. It's the smaller parks, our neighborhood parks, that the community uses. And council identified over the last year just issues that had to be done, and it was improvements that had to be made. In the past, we always dealt with money being an issue. Where do you spend your money? Do you spend it on parks? Do you spend it on roads? Do you spend it on water? Do you spend it on everything and kind of divide up the pie? We've been very fortunate over the last 2 or 3 years that revenues came in higher in the City of Avondale than what we expected. And we have a very strong parks team and parks director. And they identified the smaller parks to kind of make those improvements. So I'll kind of go down the list with you. Mountain View Park, completed by September 29th. Lighted multi-purpose fields for youth sports, practice activities, basketball court, resurfacing, new goals, backboards and lighting, security lighting, improved ADA accessibility, which is a huge thing. You've got to have the ability for every child to be able to play in our parks, and that accessibility makes a big difference. Parking improvements, new picnic ramadas, new park benches, new landscaping, new irrigation. DeConcini, completed by mid-October. New security lighting, basketball court, resurfacing, new goals, backboards, lighting improvements, benches, and improved ADA access. Again, making sure all of our kids can play there. Great. Fred Campbell by mid-October, security lighting, basketball, kind of the same things you heard a little bit with the other parks. And then Desi Loren, planned landscape and irrigation system improvements by spring of 2019. Because you can see that we have really tackled parks over the last year. And again, it has been a cooperation between the City Council and staff. And how many people have attended a City Council meeting? Not just Avondale, but other City Council meetings, okay? I will tell you that Avondale City Council meetings are much different than any other council meeting you're going to attend. We keep it really light, we keep it very friendly, we have a really good back and forth, everyone's respectful. And when I tell you that the council members genuinely like one another, we genuinely like one another. You'll see a posting afterward. There's a restaurant/bar, so I'm not going to lie to you, at City Hall. After council meetings, council may get together at this location to have dinner and have a drink. I don't think it says have a drink, but I'm going to improvise.
That may happen.
We like each other. And if you look at our Facebook posts when we're interacting with one another, and we have to be really careful about that with open meeting laws, there's a camaraderie there, and I think that's important. And I think you don't see that in every city.
That's great. So how do you realistically blend housing and agriculture and industry and commercial all together in that area south of 10? You have a large swath of land there.
You do. When you go, if you're not familiar, Avondale goes all the way to the Estrella Mountains, and then the other side of the Estrella is about 54 square miles of planting area that we have. It's a big swath of land. So our team really interacts with landowners to make sure that we not only do what's best for the city, but the landowners, because they have a stake in the city. And councils come and go, mayors come and go, but landowners, they're there for the long term. So how do you make sure their input is taken? You know, we really do follow the General Plan 2030. So we take citizens' ideas on that and we incorporate those ideas into our 2030 plan, and making sure that we have a really good balance of industrial, housing, commercial. Agriculture is always going to be a big part of what happens in Avondale. It's been a big part since Avondale before it was a city. I see that continuing. But the truth is that at some point in the future, you always want to reevaluate those plans as new opportunities come in. I know we're going to touch on the State Route 30. 10 years ago, the State Route 30 wasn't planned in that area. How do you incorporate what the State Route 30 is going to bring to Avondale and to the West Valley, and how do you tweak those plans? So those plans are always in a state of discussion, not a state of flux, but a state of discussion. So,
great. In South Avondale, you have two specific mixed-use areas, Center City and the Historic District. Can you update us on the progress of each of those? And in the Center City area, you had a pedestrian-friendly area as well. Mm-hmm. How's that going?
So let me touch on Historic Avondale first. So Historic Avondale, over the last 20 years, the city, between infrastructure, roads, and everything, has put in somewhere around, I think it's closer to $50 million, but you can argue it's somewhere between $30 and $50 million. So a city the size of Avondale putting that much money into a very concentrated area tells you what we think about that area and the investments that we see in there. Historic Avondale is going to become what it's going to become. The city can only dictate so much what we want to see there and what we can do down there. So we have a really good group of merchants, the Historic Avondale Merchants Association, HAMA, who's really involved, and they do a lot of things on Western Avenue. But the truth is, Western Avenue can't survive on its own. So how do you increase that reach into the surrounding areas? And we've done that by reducing impact fees and design fees. We have some investments happening in Historic Avondale when it comes to residential. You have a new assisted living facility off of Van Buren, close to Central, which is almost done. You see the investment on Dysart Road with Madison Heights, the apartment complex there. For those of you who are familiar, there is a large swath of land between Agua Fria High School to the south and the shopping center to the north. That property is in escrow right now. So we think something will happen there. I don't know what it's going to be right now. So the zoning calls for multifamily along with some commercial uses. We'll see what happens there. The exciting thing is that Historic Avondale was designated as an opportunity zone. And for those of you who aren't aware of what an opportunity zone is, it was a bipartisan effort, amazingly, on the federal level, of taking money that was on the sidelines. So investors had money, they sold a business, they sold something, and I'm not talking about small amounts of money. The last estimate I heard was somewhere around $1 trillion sitting on the sideline that they didn't want to reinvest because of capital gains. Opportunity zones were put together by Democrats and Republicans to pull that money off the sidelines and reinvest it in areas that need it. Historic Avondale. Avondale has 3 opportunity zones, designated opportunity zones. Historic Avondale is one of them. Right now what you're seeing is you're seeing the Treasury and you're seeing the IRS kind of finalize those rules on how it's going to happen. But I think after the first of the year, you'll see that happen. And we're talking about investments lasting anywhere from 5, 10, and 15 years. So if you keep that investment for 15 years, you will pay no capital gains on that investment. It's a big deal for Avondale. It's a big deal for Historic Avondale. For City Center has been that area that was planned really well when I first got on council, 2007, 2008. It was very ambitious. And City Center is 402 acres, so about the size of downtown Tempe for a big planning area. And it's where our sports center is at, it's where the 2 hotels are at, it's where Culver's is at, and then it's on the west side of Avondale Boulevard. In my opinion, looking back on it, we were probably too aggressive with what we wanted to see there. We did it during the heady days of the market in 2006 and 2007, where we thought nothing's going to stop this growth. And then something stopped the growth. And council has a decision to make. The question is perfect. We have a developer that's coming to us on Monday. It's on the agenda to take a portion of the corner, the corner of Avondale Boulevard and Van Buren and put in a development that doesn't quite match up to what we want. So council will decide on Monday if they want to go forward with that. But council has decided to kind of relook at that city center and look at the floor area ratios, FARs, reduce those, kind of look at some of the compromises we're going to make. I don't think there's going to be a ton of compromise in that area. But again, it's 402 acres, so some areas may get more compromise. Some developers may have to work harder to bring what they want to bring. I've always seen that area of Avondale Boulevard as you come off the freeway as the gateway to the city. You can argue that 107th Avenue is the gateway or Dysart Road is the gateway. I think it's Avondale Boulevard. It has the Avondale name on it. So I think you'll see it get developed over the next year, parts of it, but I think it's going to be a while before the full area gets developed.
And can you tell us what FARs are?
So FARs are floor area ratios. So the higher a floor area ratio is, the more dense the development is. So an example would be a floor area ratio. If you went to downtown Phoenix and you looked at a high-rise, that floor area ratio is very dense because the building goes up, it doesn't spread out. Most shopping centers in the metropolitan area are probably a 0.25 FAR. So how much of that land is dedicated to commercial, residential, office, whatever it is? Because a lot of times you have shopping centers, what's the biggest part of the shopping center? It's parking lot. What we wanted to see on Avondale Boulevard and the city center was you wouldn't see parking lot. If you go to San Diego, and I was in San Diego a month ago, and you see a lot of their shopping centers, do you see parking lot from the outside areas? You see buildings coming up right to the street. You see intense uses of landscape. You see a lot of different uses. That's kind of what we were looking for on Avondale Boulevard and the city center plan. And I think we're going to have a majority of that, but we're going to decide over the next probably few months. And I think the first development coming out of the ground is going to set the standard, and that's why that first development is so important.
Crucial.
It is.
Absolutely. So if you do not know about opportunity zones, I wrote an article about it. It's at wemargad.org. It's really interesting. And keep in mind, it's for your investors who may have to, they want to sell stocks, bonds, anything that's not a regular real estate type of product. You can also sell real estate. But if you want to do a 1031 exchange with your real estate, that's one thing. This is an opportunity for those investors who have other types of products to sell, and they want to invest and have the same benefits that you would in a 1030 exchange, that deferment of capital gains, and eventually, if they keep it long enough, they won't have any capital gains. I link into the IRS so you can keep abreast of what's going on with the IRS rules as well. So take a look at that if you or your clients are interested in opportunity zones. And there's an interactive map so that when you link into that interactive map, you can tell exactly what sections have been identified as opportunity zones.
So Avondale has three. One is historic Avondale. One is the area along 99th Avenue from Thomas to McDowell going west to 107th. And then the third one is where the State Route 30 is going to be. So for me, the historic Avondale one is the most exciting.
That's great. So Avondale has several infrastructure projects in process and recently completed. Can you tell us about the three projects you have that have the most impact on the city, and how is that street lighting project going in for those of you who don't know? That's a really big project, changing over all those lights. Maybe you could tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, the the streetlight project was about 8,000 lighting fixtures throughout the city. We're at about 7,800 of those done, being converted from sodium to LEDs. When the project is all done and after we've taken all the cost, over the next 20 years, the city will save about $3 million. So it's a big deal for us. It made sense. There was some money up front on it, but it really does make sense to do that. Along that, we replaced some poles that were rotting, had been rusted out. There was a discussion a couple weeks ago at council as we go into historic Avondale, because there were streetlights that were replaced in historic Avondale. But you have to understand, when historic Avondale was built, it was the first part of the city. It was in the 40s and the 50s, and a lot of those areas were there before then. The infrastructure in historic Avondale is not always up to date with the rest of the city. So the LED project has helped lighting and security in some of the areas of historic Avondale, but the truth is we have to put more lights in historic Avondale, and those LED projects are going to happen. We're looking at improving water projects in the southern part of the city. That's an important one for us. We discussed that probably 3 weeks ago, a month ago with council. Some of the things that you find in historic Avondale and the older parts of Avondale is that there really are no records what's under the ground. Okay? So it's not the cost of the infrastructure that is the big deal. It's, oh, we're going to dig a trench and we hit a gas line. That was never mentioned. And the gas line could be not being used. There's electrical here. There's just a lot going on. So the infrastructure projects happening in historic Avondale, and council's shown a real appetite for making sure that Avondale develops equally and make sure that our residents have a sense of pride. So there's not, and I know we're talking about North and South Avondale. Let me tell you, I hate North and South Avondale. I hate the term. There is no North and South Avondale. It's Avondale, right? I grew up in a town in Chicago called Oak Lawn. I always compare Oak Lawn to Avondale because they're very similar. But there was no South Avondale or East or South Oak Lawn or East Oak Lawn or North Oak Lawn. I don't live in South Avondale, and I live south of I-10. I live in Avondale. So how do we make sure that there's equity spread out through the entire city? Okay?
So you touched on that lighting project a little bit and how big it was. And that was sort of an amazing coalition of you working with other cities as well for that. So talk a little bit about that.
So there's a lot of cooperative purchasing that happens on a municipal level and on a county level when you have to buy things. We want to go out and buy a fire truck. Well, for us to go out and do a bid for a fire truck with all the specifications, when Phoenix has already done the legwork, when Goodyear has already done the legwork, so the state allows cooperative purchasing agreements, and we glom onto those. The LED project was again, for us to go out and do all the hard lifting on that, it had already been done by the City of Phoenix. So we used City of Phoenix's RFP. We kind of tweaked some things in there and then what we wanted to see, but we used their purchasing power to get that lighting done. And it saved the city a lot of money. You know, one of the things I want to touch on for infrastructure too is I just got done being the chairman of the MAG Transportation Policy Committee. And one of the projects that was approved was a new off-ramp at Fairway Drive in Avondale. So if you're on I-10 and you're heading east and you're coming from Goodyear and you look at the big warehouses that are on Avondale Boulevard and where Legacy Charter School is at, there's going to be a new on-ramp, off-ramp at that road. And that's a big deal for us. Those warehouses there, it'll take traffic off of Van Buren. It'll give easier access. And one of the things that council did a couple months ago was look at rezoning the parcel of land. So if I'm on Fairway Drive and I'm driving toward I-10, the eastern side of that development was zoned for high-density multifamily. When you look about a freeway off-ramp and on-ramp and all the traffic that's going to happen, does it make sense to have apartments there where you have kids going back and forth to school, where you have people trying to get on and off there? So council was very proactive, and they looked at changing the zoning and bringing in manufacturing and office park. And I can't go into too much detail, but it looks like we're going to have a development coming in pretty quickly, and somewhere about 350 new jobs in the city.
Great.
So for a city that has 3.7% unemployment rate, 350 new jobs is a big deal. So we will keep you updated on that.
Great. And I know ADOT at one point had thought that they would start construction on that Fairway Drive off-ramp in July. That hasn't started yet. Have they given you any updates on what their timing is?
Yeah, we're looking at the end of 2018 to have that done. The city's doing some infrastructure there right now, some work. So when the ramp comes in, we don't have to tear up the ramp to do it. We're anticipating 2020 is when that off-ramp will be done. And you're going to laugh at this, I'm a big proponent of small business. My mom and dad owned a small business in Phoenix. My sister still owns it. And we have a small business in Avondale called 8-Bit Ale Works. Who's been to 8-Bit? Liz, thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Dennis. I saw the hand go up. So 8-Bit was a husband and wife. He was a home brewer. And when I tell you he is a genius when it comes to brewing beer, he is a genius when it comes to brewing beer. And they started this Ale Works company, and I think I might have talked about it at the last time we were here. Since then, he's doubled the size of his space. He now has 5,000 square feet. He is distributing beer throughout the entire region. He's bottling his own beer. He's canning his own beer. He had a friend that was doing the same thing, but with mead. So mead, the honey wine, okay? You can make mead different ways. And they're opening up their first meadery, Avondale's first meadery. And I have to say mead and not meadery, M-E-A-T, because I'd be excited with a meadery also, but their first meadery right next door. So Avondale's doing things that other cities don't think about doing, but we're going to have a very unique and eclectic area right off that off-ramp. And that off-ramp's going to help them.
And that 8-Bit Brewery is right there in that little industrial park there. So that means he's pretty much going to take up that entire block of buildings.
So.
Yeah.
Well, I always feel bad because, so they do a thing on Wednesdays called, and this sounds like an advertisement for them, but they do a thing on Wednesdays called Geeks Who Drink. And it's a trivia game. And it's great. And it's not like any other trivia game you played. They have music and they have video and they have all these other things. And they fill the place up. And this place only holds like 100 people. They have food trucks because they don't serve any food. So if you want to eat food there, bring your own food in. But they have games. So my wife and I go there and we play gin rummy. And we have a couple beers. And I always feel bad because I'll post on Facebook that I'm there. And my wife's like, maybe you shouldn't post as much that you're there. Okay, I won't. But there's a lot of happening. So if you get a chance, just go check it out. And Wednesdays is a lot of fun. And go support a small business.
Great. What is your vision for Avondale in regards to economic job building development in the next 5 years, and how do you plan to accomplish that?
So when I talked to you 2 years ago, we were really trying to, we had that incentive plan, the Accelerate Now, $2 million. And that has been incredibly successful. If you look at the developments that have come in, Main Event, Copper Springs Hospital, Copper State Rubber, some other developments that have come in. it was to jumpstart development. And this year, we're probably going to do about 350 new residential builds. Like I told you 2 years ago, that I think our sweet spot is somewhere between 500 and 750. And I think we've gotten past the days in 2005 and 2006 when we were issuing 2,300 building permits a year. It's not what works for us any longer. But I think having that mix of residential and different types of residential, I think council wants to see not only 1,300 square foot single family homes that all look the same. There's a market for that. But the truth is, for Avondale to be unique and for us to develop where we want to develop, we've got to have a really good mix. So you see an appetite for townhomes right now. There is a development that wants to go in at the corner of Indian School and Dysart Road that is single family rental units. And you've seen them in other parts of the city. You see them at Greenway Road and Litchfield Road. You see them at 107th Avenue in Camelback. They're going to come to council at a work session, and they're going to talk about this project and if it makes sense. There's some challenges with the land that's there, but we'll see what we can do to mitigate that. It's a unique product. The issue with Avondale is Avondale has 23 apartment complexes. I'm not talking small 1 or 2 units. I'm talking apartment complexes. I think we need to get away from that. And I think we need to have a broader base of housing. And that's come from council. Council has really pushed the developers to come back with unique product. You know, we haven't even touched on the Lake and Ranch product. And I know you're going to touch on that. I think we want to see more condos. So my vision would be over the next 5 years, more condos, more townhomes, bigger estate homes, somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 square feet homes on half-acre lots. Is there a market for it? I think there is. Okay, it just depends on where those products are at. Do those products work on Avondale Boulevard next to the freeway? Absolutely not. Do they work looking over the lakes in the southern end of the city where the mountains are at? They absolutely do. So how do we get that done? Commercial, I always kid Georgia Lord from Goodyear when they have all those developments going up on the 303. You keep on employing all those people and we'll keep on feeding them. Okay? Because to be honest with you, I'd rather have people coming into Avondale shopping and eating and doing all the things that they're going to do. If you look at what's happened on the McDowell Road corridor, especially where main events at, especially where vintage properties are at, and I will tell you that we're going to have a very large announcement over the next month on another product coming in on McDowell Road that will surprise a lot of you. Well, maybe not Mandy, but it'll surprise a lot of you. I love the restaurant blend that we have in the city. We have a lot of mom and pop. Right. We have some chains. We have a lot of restaurant talent in the West Valley. The problem is the restaurant talent in the West Valley leaves the West Valley to go to the East Valley. Okay? You look at Sam Fox with all of his concepts. Sam Fox swore that he would never ever build another restaurant in the West Valley. You have got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. With 2 million people going to be in the West Valley over the next 10 or 15 years, you're not going to build any product in the West Valley that supports them? I think it's short-sighted. So I'm working with mayors to do a restaurant program where you take chefs who are really talented. And I think you all know that I work at the Wigwam. We have a lot of talented chefs at the Wigwam. And if you've eaten at Litchfield's or Red's, you've seen what they can do. There's chefs like that throughout the entire West Valley. How do we develop that talent? How do we develop a restaurant incubator like DeSoto Market is in downtown Phoenix? And if you've never been to DeSoto Market, go online and see what it's all about. But it's basically an incubator for restaurants. How do we do that in the West Valley? It doesn't necessarily have to be in Avondale, but how do you do that in the West Valley? So that would be a vision that I would have over the next 5 years. I think you've seen the tax changes that have come down from the Supreme Court on online taxes. I think that's going to spur some more logistics centers in the West Valley. You see what Goodyear is doing along the 303. I think in Avondale we'd like to see more of that. I don't want to be, and nothing against Tolleson and what Mayor Tovar is doing there, but I think you have to have a really good blend of those large buildings and residential and commercial. So I'd like to see us get a couple more of those type of logistics facilities in there. And then council has shown an appetite to expand the auto mall. We have one of the largest auto malls in the state. So if you're on the north side of 107th Avenue along the freeway, I think I'd like to see the auto mall double in size. Because you're looking at domestic automakers that are doing a lot right now, and they're having great years. But the truth is, the key is...
Oh, wave your hands. Sorry about that.
Oh, there you go.
Turned on the lights.
You see international automakers that are coming, or they're going to be coming in. You're going to see Chinese manufacturers who are coming in, and they're going to want dealerships. However you feel about the Chinese and their cars and what they do to the American market, the truth is they're coming in. So expand the auto mall to take those into account. Electric manufacturers are coming in. Tesla's not coming into Avondale. Okay, but there are other manufacturers who are going to come in that we don't even know about. There's other technologies that are coming in. How do we make sure that Avondale's ready for that? So over the next 5 years, I'd like to see some progression on that. And then I'd like to see us get some data centers in Avondale. And data centers themselves do not employ a lot of people. They're huge buildings that have all the servers. The key to data centers, and if you look at what Mesa's doing with 1 million square feet of new data centers, when you look at Phoenix, what Phoenix is doing along the 202 when that gets done, it's not the data centers that employ, it's the co-location. So medical facilities, you have real estate facilities, you have mortgage companies, you look at what Amazon just did at the old Room store on Litchfield Road in Goodyear. Those employ about 100 people, and the average salary is between $80,000 to $100,000. It brings daytime traffic for restaurants and shopping. It brings services when it comes to dry cleaners, when it comes to getting your hair done, when it comes to all these other things. So I think somewhere along Avondale Boulevard and McDowell Road, I'd like to see some data centers, but council's going to have to get more information on that.
Great. Okay, we are going to take a 10-minute break. Okay, we had a couple of questions from the audience, so we're going to start off with those so you get your answers. The first one was, how much was the upfront, ongoing, and finance cost to the LED lighting project versus the projected $3 million savings?
Don't remember. Was that honest? The cost up front was pretty significant. And can I ask who asked that question? Can I get your information after, and I'll have that information sent to you via email? Yeah. So this is what I have. I just don't remember what the cost is up front. And I'll know, Pat or Tina, do you remember how much it was up front? The cost on the streetlight project up front. Yeah. The estimated annual energy cost savings will be $200,000 in the first year, increasing to $351,000 by year 20. And the way we did it wasn't really financing, but the company that installs the fixtures is also, there's a warranty on there. So if something happens on those, they replace those fixtures, and it takes the onus off of the city staff for doing that. So let me get you the upfront cost on that. And I'll have, when I get done, I'll email city staff and have them send it to you. And if anybody else wants the information, would you mind passing it on? Okay.
Great, thank you. City parking on street residential parking is tight, and many cars are parked on the wrong side facing oncoming traffic. This is unenforced, and people do not believe they are wrong-way drivers. The spills over into other cities. How will you change this, educate, and enforce the safety issue?
So we're going to tackle this two ways. If it's an HOA development, the HOA is going to have, depending on what the CC&R say and how well they enforce it, they're going to be the first line of defense. I live in Roosevelt Park, and I live on 110th Drive. There's 110th Avenue and 110th Drive. If you pull on 110th Drive, there's very little on-street parking. If you go on 110th Avenue, it looks like you're lined up for Dutch Brothers. Okay, there's parking on both sides of the street. It is irritating to me. Okay, with everything else that police have to do, probably pretty low on their priority, to be honest with you. If you contact them and someone is parked wrong, they will get there. Will they get there in 10 minutes? It's Avondale. There's a lot of other things happening, but they will get there. One of the things that I would like to see change from a city level is I think there's streets that pull into a subdivision. So I will give you, and I'm going to use Roosevelt Park as an example. Roosevelt Park is 107th Avenue in Van Buren. And there's a street that runs through it called Roosevelt Parkway North, and it converts into Roosevelt Parkway South. If you pull into a feeder street off of Roosevelt Parkway, there are people who will park. So there's a median in the way, and then people will park right on the curb. I can squeeze by in my Genesis, but a fire truck, there's no way. A UPS truck, no way. I would like to see the city stop that. I think the city can do more with on-street parking. The issue is that you've seen the dynamic of homes change and who's living in the home. So it used to be a mom and a dad and 2 or 3 kids. Now it's mom and dad, it's grandma, it's an uncle. There's no way you're going to be able to enforce all that. So get with me after, whoever wrote it, get with me after. Give me the specific area that you're talking about. I'll get with my police chief. And if they're parked the wrong way, let's see what we can do. Okay? Yes. Pat, was that you who wrote that?
No.
Okay.
No, but let me add to that. We have, City of Avondale has a wet, local license download. And if you see those kind of issues, especially if they're in the wrong direction, just go online, do a report, take a picture, and it goes directly to whatever department that you're making a report on. It makes it very simple, very easy, and the response of our city is wonderful. So it's another avenue to address those issues of interest.
So it's called the My Avondale app. And if you download it, it's not just parking. If you see anything, take a picture of it, and you're basically anonymous. Just report it.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the next sort of larger project that's going on, and that's the Lakin Ranch project, which now, I don't remember if you guys have officially approved the CFD or not.
We did.
Yeah, okay. So it has a CFD attached to it, which to my knowledge is the first CFD in Avondale. So tell us how that conversation went and how you ended up deciding as a city council that a CFD was the only mechanism to make that work. And then go into the Lakin Ranch project. Is it what we still think of from the old plan? Has there been changes? What are your thoughts on that?
So I've been on council since 2006. I'll make sure I have this on. 2006. And the Lakin Ranch project in some iteration and form has been on our books since then. And it's gone through multiple developers. The family it was dead for a while. And I can remember one of the first meetings I had as mayor, when Marie stepped down, I think I had gotten sworn in, and like that Thursday I had a meeting at one of the Hilton hotels in Avondale, and it was with the developer, my city manager, and the Lakin family. And I can remember having breakfast, and one of the Lakin sons, or son-in-law, is yelling at me in the lobby of the Hilton hotels. "You screwed us, you screwed us." I don't even know who you are. And he's talking about the history of Avondale and how we went back on our deals and everything else. And I'm like, well, okay, let's just be really honest here. It was a two-way street of changing plans and doing things. And I said, we can either focus on what happened in the past or we can move forward. Your decision. And they decided to move forward. And it was Sunbelt Holdings, who was the developer at the time. And they just couldn't make the numbers work with the density. For those of you who aren't familiar with Lakin, it's about 1,300 acres. It was zoned for right around, at the time, maybe 2,500, 2,600 homes. Big green belts. Some of the encumbrances on the property were, there's huge electric towers that run through the property. There's a water line that runs from the 91st Avenue treatment plant in Phoenix out to Palo Verde, and that water line provides water for cooling for Palo Verde. So pretty important. You can't build on top of it. There was a canal, the Durango Channel, that runs through it. So it was a challenge on how you develop it and how you make the city happy and how you make the owners happy. So a new developer was put into place maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's the same developer that developed Eastmark out in Mesa. Are you guys familiar with Eastmark? Eastmark is a huge master plan community. It's much bigger than what Lakin is, but it's beautiful. So the easiest way to get a vision of what they want to build was they took council members and staff out to Eastmark and they gave us a tour. And for the most part, we were really impressed. Community pool, huge park, clubhouse, very different style of homes. When I think of the trendsetters in the West Valley, I look at Verrado. And as beautiful as Estrella is, when you go through Verrado, sometimes you can't tell that you're in the Phoenix metro area. All the homes are different. They're really unique. There's different elevations, just different styles. And I think that's what captured council's attention at Eastmark. And while Lakin Ranch is not going to have the exact same types of homes because it's different for the market, I think the commitment that they made to Avondale was significant. The commitment that we made as a council to them was significant. So we increased the density on the homes. We talked about 4,000 to 6,000 square foot homes on bigger lots. It will have a portion of that development having that, which is unique to Avondale. What's unique about Lakin is that as the southern part of the city, we have a whole series of lakes. Did you guys realize that there's a series of lakes in southern Avondale? The series of lakes is larger than Tempe Town Lake, twice as wide, twice as long. And we see what's happening in Tempe. Now I get it, there's 60,000 college students in Tempe, and that helps a lot of the development. But the truth is, for me, there are no more prettier views than the Estrella Mountains in the southern part of the city, and when there's lakes there and everything. So Lakin's going to be a premier community. So you're going to see townhomes, you're going to see zero lot line homes, you're going to see elevations that don't exist. You're going to see huge parks that will separate the development. So you'll have houses on one side of the street, houses on the other, and they'll pour out into a large community park with barbecues. And council really pushed Lakin to kick up the amenities. You're going to have a community pool in there. You're going to have horse paths and trails and everything else that go through that community. They're going to break ground by the end of the year. So Lakin is a game changer for the city of Avondale. 3,000 homes, the largest approved development in the West Valley, I think, in the last 5 years. And that's going to change the way Avondale looks in the southern part of the city.
So the artist renderings that we see online, are those pretty accurate still to what it will look like when it's completed?
Yeah, they haven't designated any builders yet, but I think what you see there, and you look at the, I hate the word diversity because it's been overused, but the diversity of homes that are going to be there and the amenities, I think, are really close to what you see online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So there, on the Avondale City website, there is a whole documentation of what this is going to look like, and you can see those plans, and it's really going to be really beautiful, a nice place to go.
It is, and Liz touched on the CFD. It was our first CFD. You know, Goodyear has, I think, 7 CFDs. Buckeye has a lot. Peoria has a lot. It was our first time at that, and I think you're right. For the developer to bring in the amenities and the infrastructure that we required, they had to do a CFD. And when you look at Avondale's property tax, we're somewhere around $1.80 something. The CFD for this you're looking at with the CFD probably somewhere in the $3 range. But I think you're going to have an educated buyer who wants to live in a community like that. They're going to understand what the tax implications are for that. You know, you're going to look at, one of the changes that happened in Lakin was that in the original plan there was commercial and retail development inside the community. What the developer said to us, and they were right, was there's enough commercial development on the periphery of Lakin that we don't need anything on the inside. There's school sites there. We're going to put a public safety facility in there. Proximity to PIR with the zoning that's happened at PIR. You know, PIR is finishing up their $178 million project pretty quickly. And the zoning that we made to PIR a couple of years ago really is going to change the southern part of the city. When you look at the connectivity between State Route 30 from the West Valley out in Buckeye all the way to the 202, it's going to be a major employment corridor. Will it be in a major employment corridor tomorrow? No, but when it's built in 2021, it's going to be a major employment corridor.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question on Lakin? Okay.
Great, thank you. So Avondale has a site selector information on their website. And you have emphasis on health, tech, office, industrial flex, retail, and data centers. So can you tell us, in Avondale, are you actively recruiting as a city these types of businesses? And if so, where are you targeting?
Okay.
Why did the city choose those specific sectors? And the city website has commercial offerings from commercial real estate agents. So does the city work hand in hand with them, or is that a place for them to land their listings just as another vendor?
No, we work with commercial agents. We work with them all the time. I was at City Hall before I came here, and they are our eyes and ears about what's happening out in the development community. They're also the ones who are brutally honest. Who's a commercial agent here? Anybody?
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
They are brutally honest with us when we're doing something right and when we're doing something wrong. Yes. So they'll tell us what the market's looking for. They'll tell us when owners of property are being difficult to work with, and they might bypass that property and move on to something else. It's like you as residential agents. Are you brutally honest with the homeowners? Yeah. With your buyers? Yeah. So we work hand in hand with them. We work hand in hand with the site selectors, especially in today's market where you're seeing occupancy levels drop to record lows. In the retail, industrial, especially in the larger size industrial buildings, there's not a lot. Above 500,000 square feet, there's not a lot out there. So we work with the site selectors. In fact, on data centers, you have to work with the site selector because they're going out there and they're bringing those investment dollars in. They want to know that there's clean power. So are we near a substation? How is the water supply in the city? Because we're using that water to chill our servers. We want to make sure that the site selectors really tell us, hey, this site works better than this site, and we work with them all the time. How do we choose the industries that we go after? Sometimes it's just what other cities do. Let's use the health tech corridor along McDowell Road. 2 major hospitals. You got Abrazo West Valley and you have Banner. Okay? It makes sense to put a health tech corridor in between those 2 facilities. And cancer treatment centers, let's not forget them. So when you look at our health tech corridor, I always said you can't have a health tech corridor without any kind of health buildings in there, right? So you've seen over the last few years, you've seen investment. The IMS building at the corner of 107th Avenue and McDowell, 107th Avenue and I-10 has been there for a long time. What we announced at State of the City was ACOS Telemedicine is moving their headquarters from North Phoenix to Avondale. They're building 2 75,000 square foot buildings. Telemedicine is the next wave when it comes to medical care. And as healthcare costs, as reimbursement goes down, doctors and specialists don't have the ability to see you face to face. They especially don't have the ability to see you face to face when you have a minor issue. So telemedicine is going to be the wave of the future. But ACOS couldn't fill up both those buildings. So what they've done is they've gone out and they've brought in doctors and surgery centers and types of services that don't exist in the West Valley right now. They don't exist in Peoria, they don't exist in Surprise, they don't exist anywhere in the West Valley. They will exist in Avondale, and they're breaking ground in the next 30 days. At the Health Tech Corridor with Copper Springs Hospital, that just got bought by a major company. We'll see what changes happen there. And then just west of Copper Springs is a 25,000 square foot 2-story facility going in. So our Health Tech Corridor is going to get filled up pretty quickly, and we'll see if we want to expand it. We'll see what council's appetite is for that. A lot of times when it comes to industrial, the industrial game has changed. Industrial used to be heavy water uses, a lot of land, a lot of road infrastructure. You don't see that in Phoenix. You just don't. Even when you look at Amazon that employs, 1,500 to 2,000 people per facility, the traffic in and out isn't that bad because those people are there for 8 hours a day. You don't have a lot. You have some truck traffic that's coming in and out, but it's usually accessible by a freeway. So industrial to us is light manufacturing. That's what I would classify. Avondale will never have the kind of capacity for industry that Goodyear has along the 303. We don't have the foreign trade zones there. Do we have the ability to put foreign trade zones in? Absolutely we do. But again, I don't want to be a Goodyear and I don't want to be a Towson, and nothing wrong with what they've done with their cities. By any measure, both those cities have been incredibly successful. I want Avondale to be what Avondale is going to be. And council is going to guide that vision. It's going to set that vision. It's going to direct staff. It's going to gauge our residents. But the truth is, it's going to be the market that dictates what we get. And how do we work with that? So those kind of things are what dictates kind of what happens.
And that health corridor is so important. The last numbers I was seeing for workforce was showing that up to 1/3 of doctors and nurses and allied professionals in the healthcare field leave, particularly Southwest Valley, and go east. Mm-hmm. So bringing those facilities back into the West Valley, as a consumer out there, love it that I can just go down the street, but it's also nice for them. What a great benefit for them to not have to spend 2 hours a day or more commuting and bring our doctors and nurses and other technicians back in.
Well, if you look at what's happening along the 101, let's say from Thomas to I-10. So you've got the John F. Long property where Banner Hospital's at. Mm-hmm. So you've got Banner Hospital, you've got the medical facility right next to them. They're building another medical tower next to them, and then there's one across the street. I think that's what you're going to see along the 101 corridor. Now, the west side of the 101, part of that is Avondale. Okay, so I think you'll see some things happen there. I think more and more the investment is in medical right now. It is. It's where the population is aging. You're seeing a lot of new technologies that are coming in. And the truth is, the funding for medical buildings is there, just like it is for apartments. That's why you see the growth in apartments, because the financing for apartments is there. Investors can go out and get that financing. For a medical building to get built, it has to be 75% pre-leased. okay? ACO's pre-leased their building within 3 months, both buildings, okay? I think you'll see there's a lot more land along 107th Avenue. I think you'll see some other things there. If you're at the southeast corner of 107th Avenue in McDowell, there was talk there would be a hospital there, and I think 2 years ago we talked about the possibility of a hospital going there. I think it could happen. It just depends on who's coming in. You're seeing consolidation in the healthcare market, in the hospital market. I don't see that consolidation changing. I see it getting worse, for lack of a better term. We'll see what happens there.
Great. So you talked about how you work with your commercial agents out in the field, and one thing I wanted to ask you about, because we're still hearing from our commercial agents that there's a real lack of flex space in the West Valley and in Southwest Valley. Has that type of product, is that something that Avondale would entertain, and are you working on that with some of the commercial agents?
We are. Problem with Avondale right now, and it's not a problem, it's just in the northern part, again, the northern part of the city. The area along the freeway, there's not a lot of land that's left. And it was zoned before for other things. So I talked about earlier, we're changing some of the zoning. And the flex part of that is really important. You need to have the ability for someone to come in and build out either a 5,000 square foot facility or a 50,000 square foot facility. Not everyone's Amazon, not everyone's Chewy, not everyone's UPS. They're not going to build these million square foot facilities. They're just not. So the flex space that we have, if you look at our warehouse offerings along I-10, and I call them the red and white buildings. 3 years ago, they were mostly empty, and there's a lot of them. Right now, they're about 90% leased. It's up to the developers and the landowners to build more of that space. We're not going to build it as a city. You look at what's happened with King Coil coming in. King Coil is a mattress manufacturer. You probably sleep on their mattresses that they've licensed through other companies. Last year, they changed the way they do business, and Avondale was their first manufacturing facility. That was a big coup for us, and it's about 100 jobs, and you say, well, that's not a lot. It's a name brand manufacturing facility in Avondale. It shows to other manufacturers that we can do that. Vitamin Shoppe is double the amount of employees that they said they would have. That's huge for us. It employs local people. They took a lot of that flex space up. And you look at the 1 million square foot building where Cons is at, and on the west side it's Sanmar, and I can't think right now, it slips my mind who's there. I think we need to build more of those facilities. But again, where do you put them, and how do you buffer between them and residential? So the commercial developers are the ones who are going to have to do that. And I know they're talking with us now. And I think you'll see more of that commercial development in the southern part of the city as the State Route 30 comes closer.
And the city apparently has been very easy to work with some of those King Coil and Copper State Rubber. They both in the press, in the business press, have mentioned Avondale in glowing terms as far as being able to work with the city and get what they needed. So that's always helpful as well. So if you have clients out there who are looking for cities who want to work with you, yes, it's very different than it was a few years ago. Change your image, and the cities are working with you.
We had the Accelerate Now program that I talked about earlier, and the council has tweaked the Accelerate Now. That was the incentive for building residential and commercial, where we would rebate 20% back of the impact fees to you. Council has decided, and I think correctly, to kind of tweak that program going forward for 2019. But I'll give you when you talk about ease of working with. When ACO's telemedicine came in, the 20% that they were going to use with us was going to sunset the end of June. They came in and submitted plans, went through their red lines, resubmitted their plans, and got approved in 60 days. Okay? It was the fastest that we had ever done. And we didn't skimp on quality, we didn't skimp on making sure we got what we wanted. They came in and knew exactly what they wanted. Their red lines were minimal. They corrected them, they came back, and they were done, and they're breaking ground in the next couple months. Cities have to react that way. Right. Of doing 9 months or a year, those days are over.
Right. So with the increase of growth and everything that you're bringing to the city, we have a police and fire services that start to need money, and they need facilities, and they need their own whatever type of cars, trucks, whatever it is that they need. How are you planning to pay for that increase or maintaining it? What's your plan going forward for those type of services?
So public safety takes up a huge portion of our budget. I would say it's close to 50%, if not a little bit more, okay? And I don't see those numbers changing very much. I think if you look at most cities, they're pretty close to that. Some are more, some are less. Avondale is a unique city because we are growing. We have made changes over the last few years to make sure that our firefighters and police officers are compensated. There was nothing more frustrating for me as a mayor or for council members that we would have a council meeting, we would welcome 7 new police officers. Yay, 7 new police officers. And then we would find out that we lost 12 to other departments. Okay, that sucks. So a few years ago, we made we did a survey valley-wide to find out what the issue was, and it was pay. It wasn't only starting pay, but it was pay after 3 years, after 5 years. And we did things to correct that. We did things to correct the tiers, not only in the police and fire department, because those people are paid on tiers, how long you've been there, what your ranks are, everything. So we made those changes. We did a memorandum of understanding and recognized the police and fire unions. I'm not a big union guy, I'm just not. I'm sorry if I offend anyone, I'm not. But I understand the need for police and fire unions because city councils change, leadership in those cities change. And the truth is, firefighters and police officers need to have those protections. Okay, they do. And I think we have a really good working relationship with our unions. So we've done things to help them with that. We've upgraded equipment. I tell the story where I did a ride-along. And for those of you who want to do a ride-along with Avondale Police, just contact City Hall. Don't do it on a Tuesday night. It'll be really boring. Do it on a Friday or Saturday night and bring a lunch, okay? So I do a ride-along. I do a ride-along, and I was running for re-election. And I didn't do the ride-along for a political stunt. I did a ride-along because I try and do one a couple times a year. So I go to the briefing. And they had just had a call the night before where someone had reported they saw men with rifles in a house. So police responded in force. And when they got there, it was family members. They had rifles, but it wasn't like they were holding people up or doing anything. It was just, they had the rifles there. How someone saw in the window, they still have no idea because the road was far back from the house. So they have a projector, but there's no projector. They have that mount, but there's no projector in the briefing room. They have a whiteboard, but the markers are all dry. So the sergeant in charge is trying to go through what went wrong the night before and what went right. Because you always debrief. What can you do better, right? How do you position your officers? How do you do all this? So she's literally taking the marker and tipping it to her tongue so she gets done, and she said, does anybody have any questions? I said, I do. And she said, well, I don't know if you're allowed to ask. And I said, oh, I think I am. And she was joking. And I said, where's your projector? She said, it's broken. How long has it been broken? A couple months. Why don't we have any markers for the whiteboards? Yeah, I don't know. And it wasn't her fault. She's a sergeant trying to do her job. Find out that we didn't have enough of equipment, that things that we had were broken. Until you ride with the officers, until you ride with the fire department, you will never know that. Because I could ask every officer in the department, do you have all the equipment that you need? Absolutely. No, you don't. So we need to make sure that not only do we pay our officers well, but there's nothing more frustrating than going on a call and not having the equipment that you need. There's nothing more frustrating than not backing your officers when something happens. So we're going to body cameras now, and that's a big deal. Our officers are a little bit resistant to that, but we're doing body cameras. Just let me tell you that body cameras don't tell the entire story. Yeah. They don't. Because all you're seeing is, you're seeing this. Mm-hmm. You're not seeing this. I think body cameras will help. We just voted on Monday to change some of the PTO and some of the carryover time to make us more competitive with other cities. I think that's important to us. The truth is that we can't hire 10 officers and lose 8 of them to another city because of pay. So we've stopped that. So I think that's kind of what we're doing.
Great. So let's touch on transportation real quick here. And your roadways are, the in-city roadways are important, but also, as you mentioned, you have Highway 30, and that map is on WeMARGAD.org. If you don't know where that place is going to go, there's a map that links into ADOT, and you can see where that map is. We've already touched on the off-ramp from 10 to Fairway. So talk to us a little bit about transportation, freeway, what that means to the city.
So we had a meeting last night at Dillon's at 59th Avenue and the 101, and it was, well, all the West Valley mayors get together. I told you that our council gets along really well. I will tell you that to a person, the West Valley mayors get along. We like each other, we text each other, we understand that what's good for Surprise, what's good for Peoria is good for Avondale, okay? We get it. Last night we had a meeting with our state legislators. There's 30 West Valley legislators west of I-17. 5 of them showed up, a little bit disappointing on that end, but almost all the mayors showed up. Transportation was the key. So I just got done being chair of the MAG Transportation Policy Committee, TPC, and the things we talk about are, and I'm going to tell you, because we're going to need you to carry the water for us going forward, is Prop 500. So Prop 400 was what you see now with the 303 and the 101 and the State Route 30 and other improvements. We talked about it last night, and there's been an impression that the West Valley, sorry, I'll be a little bit rough, got screwed on Prop 400. East Valley got everything, West Valley got nothing. It's crap. The East Valley got what they needed at that time, which was light rail. They got some, I call them roadways of regional significance. So I'll give you examples on the west side. 99th Avenue, Dysart Road, Litchfield Road, Glendale, Bell Road, roads that go from city to city and carry significant amounts of traffic with significant amounts of development. In the East Valley, their roads got improved. So if you go to Chandler or Gilbert and you drive down their roads, there's 3 lanes in each direction with turn lanes, with medians, with everything else. And then you go to 99th Avenue and you drive from Avondale up to Peoria. You tell me what you see. Okay? But at the time, that's not what the West Valley needed. We needed freeways. And you look at what's happened along the 101, and you look at what's happened on the 303, you look at what happened with State Route 30 moving forward.
Right.
That's what we needed at the time. Going forward, we're going to work with our legislators on making sure that we have the authority to go out for a tax somewhere around 2021, 2022. And I think it's going to continue the Prop 400 sales tax. And I think it's going to focus on transit, and I think it's going to focus on regional roads of significance. By transit, I think it's going to be bus. I don't think it's going to be light rail. I don't see light rail working in the West Valley. I just don't. You need to have a dense population, and we don't have that. Do more bus routes work? I think it does. There's a portion of the population, especially in Surprise and Peoria, Sun City West, that don't have cars. They need to have bus. They can't wait on a corner in July half an hour for a bus. Those lines need to be more frequent. How do we work with the City of Phoenix and MAG on that? For State Route 30 is going to be that connector between 85 out in Buckeye and the 202. It's going to be a major freeway. We've talked about it a little bit already. But it's going to benefit Goodyear and Buckeye and Avondale and Phoenix, but it's also going to benefit Surprise. As people from Surprise go to the 303 and they have to go work out in Chandler, which is a horrible drive every day, they're going to take the State Route 30. So I think you'll see things on that. What we talked about last night was the technologies. When the Prop 500 tax passes, it's going to take us somewhere to 2042, 2043. When Prop 400 was passed, if we would have said, hey, in 20 years, they're going to be self-driving cars, and you're going to get on your mobile phone, and you're going to call a stranger to come pick you up, and you're going to pay him, and it's going to be perfectly normal. Would you have believed it? Think about what the next 20 years holds. Mm-hmm. And Mayor LaVault from Youngtown, if you've never met Mayor LaVault from Youngtown, he is a firebrand. He could get everyone standing up at a funeral. I mean, he's that dynamic. And he said, you know, the bad thing is that we have to put all this infrastructure into the West Valley, tear up roads, do all that. But the good thing is, we get to put all this new infrastructure into the West Valley and plan from a blank slate. When I tell you that you guys are going to have to carry the water, it's business owners, it's real estate agents, it's commercial that's going to have to carry the water for the Prop 500, because there was a vocal minority who spoke against Prop 400. Imagine if Prop 400 hadn't been passed. Think about what Phoenix would look like without all the freeways, without all the roads, without all the infrastructure. There's anticipated to be a million more people in the far West Valley over the next 20 years. 1 million more people. What does that infrastructure look like without Prop 500, without more roads, without roads being widened? I think it's pretty dim. So what we talked last night was all the West Valley Chambers of Commerce are going to work with you, are going to be our voices on this. And I think we'll have a plan together probably in the next 9 months or a year where every West Valley city is on the same page.
So touching on to that, the technology and some of the things. Right now, WeMAR just introduced their newest program down in Chandler. Primera is where they're serving. Where they're that pickup point for someone who needs to use the city bus but can't walk that distance or stay down. So they'll pick them up, take them down to whatever that public transportation is, or service some of the grocery stores, Walmart, some of the other stores, some of the car dealerships are using the WeMAR product to transport and do customer service back and forth to the services that they offer. As part, and WeMAR has already announced that they see themselves as being eventually that true answer to true public transportation where they can go to your door, take you to your destination, save people who have to use public transportation hours of their time, give them back those hours of time. Plus they're also working on the smart cities out in the Buckeye area as far as being part of that smart city plan. Do you see the City of Avondale or a coalition of the cities in the West Valley getting together and going to WeMAR and saying, tell us more about how you might be able to help us with that public service infrastructure?
I do. Well, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see cities stop. Cities will no longer go alone. Cities have to work together on a regional level. And I think that's what you'll see. And I'm a big car guy. When you look at the technologies that are coming out and you look at the way things are happening, you know, I was born in '65, and everyone moved out to the suburbs. And we build these huge suburbs with these shopping centers and all, you know, there was a grocery store every mile, and we built all these freeways. I think what you're going to see in the future, I think you're going to see that community come closer in. So you're going to see people, freeways are going to become less important. You're going to see city centers like what we're trying to build in Avondale, where all your services are within walking distance or biking distance or Uber distance. I think what you'll see too is I think you'll see the smart cities concept, and we touched on this last night with the legislators, is the smart cities the way they work, I think, is important for all the cities to get on board. And it's just, smart cities is a way of planning your cities for the future with sensors, with the ability to kind of look at traffic, where your people are located at, and kind of gear transportation. Light rail is great, but light rail is incredibly inflexible. If population changes, you can't move that track. Bus routes, you can change them within a couple months. Smart cities, you can change. I think what you're going to see, and you'll see that Ford and GM and Toyota are pretty much the leaders in this, you're going to see people getting away from owning their own cars. Ride sharing, not just Uber and Lyft, and not just autonomous vehicles, but you're going to see people who 4 or 5 people own a car. You'll see, if you go to Seattle or New York or Chicago, you see Zipcar on the corner. I drive my car from my home in Avondale to the Wigwam 5 days a week. It's a 10-minute drive. And if I'm not on the street making sales calls to companies in the area, my car stays at Wigwam for 10 hours. And then I drive home. But I pay for that car every minute of every day. How much sense does that make? Imagine if I only needed that car when I needed it. I want to go to the store. So I think that's what you're going to see, the technologies of the future. And you've already seen Ford. When Ford makes the announcement of getting rid of their passenger cars and going to SUVs, it's not because that's just a market trend. It's because that's where the car sharing is going. No one's going to rent a 2-seat sport car for the weekend. They're going to rent a small SUV. And I think that's what you see. So I guess, yes, the West Valley cities are really cognizant of that. And it's hard to predict 20 years out when technology is changing every 3 years. But we're going to do the best we can.
Great. Okay, we have time for one more quick question. So I wanted to give you a chance to tell us, first of all, go to the City of Avondale website. If you haven't been there in the last year, it's going to be completely redone, much easier to find things, and really a beautiful site on top of it. But for you as mayor, can you just let us know how you would like us as realtors to help our clients learn more about Avondale?
Okay, so I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I think Avondale for a long time has had a perception. I think that perception has gotten better. Okay, you used to go on the Arizona Republic and you would see people comment on Avonfail. That irritates me. You've got to be kidding me. If I said to you, what city has a higher per capita income, Goodyear or Avondale, what would you answer?
Avondale, Goodyear.
It's pretty close, folks. Most people would say Goodyear, but Avondale and Goodyear within are a couple $1,000s of one another.
Yeah.
When I hear developers say to me, no, it's her. When I hear developers say to me, Avondale doesn't have the demographics to support this business, whatever that business is, I'll use Trader Joe's, because Trader Joe's is the big one that everyone wants. Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. But the perception of Avondale has always been, Avondale gets what it gets. It gets Jack in the Box. It gets Burger King. It gets 1,300 square foot homes. The crime rate in Avondale is so exorbitant. Oh my gosh, you don't want to move there. I will tell you, maybe that was Avondale 20 years ago. But it's not Avondale now. I'm Avondale. Tina Conde and Pat Dennis are Avondale. We are a community. If I want you to sell Avondale, this is what I want you to teach people. A huge percentage of our population is under the age of 30. They're raising their families here. The quality of life is incredibly high. We have a great park system that is getting better every day. We supply water to 100% of our residents. Sorry. Okay. Perfect. We supply water to 100% of our residents, not 50%, not the northern part of the city, not the southern part of the city. We invest in our roads. We invest in our streetlights. We invest in infrastructure. Our affordability is incredible. When you look at our homes, and I was talking with Georgia Lord yesterday, and she said, you know, Goodyear is pricey in some areas. It is. Roosevelt Park 2 is going in across the street from Roosevelt Park 1, 107th Avenue in Van Buren. And that housing product is going to be unique. And Madame May is building homes in Avondale that they're not building anywhere else. You look at the lakes in the southern part of the city. You look at the views. You look at restaurants. You look at shopping. 99th Avenue in McDowell is top 5 in traffic in the state for shopping and everything else. So only 4 other intersections in the state are busier than our intersection at 99th Avenue. We're close to the Cardinal Stadium. We're close to hockey. We're close to baseball. We invest. We take our money. We ended the year with a $42 million general fund balance. Let me put that in perspective for you. Our budget last year was around $215 million. We wound up with $42 million at the end of the year. And that was on top of us putting 25% of our budget away for a rainy day fund. That's incredible for a city of our size. So when you go out and you have prospective clients who are looking at Goodyear or Litchfield, and they hear, oh, I've heard Avondale has a lot of crime. I hear Avondale is this. No, you have a young family. You're going to raise your kids in a community that has parks and amenities, has 6 school districts with highly performing schools, has all the amenities you're looking for. And not only can you raise your kids in this 1,300 square foot house, but the next time you go to move up to a 2,000 square foot home, you can move up as your kids get to be teenagers. And then as they get older and you need more room, you can move into a 4,000 square foot home. And then when your kids move out, thank God, you can move into a condo or a townhouse and enjoy those years of your life. That's what I want you to teach your clients. And I don't think a lot of people in this room do that, but I want to make sure that the Avondale of 20 years ago doesn't hinder the Avondale of today. Was that passionate enough?
Yeah,
I have to ask, are all mayors like this when they talk to you guys? Okay, am I going to be in trouble when I leave here? Okay.
Good. Anything else you want to say before you leave?
Does anybody have any questions?
All right.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you for coming. 10 minutes. We'll be back.